This is Felt Recoil.
Welcome to the Felt Recoil Podcast. This is number 28 on the docket. Congrats to us. Congrats to just over the 6-month mark. And congrats to you for finding the most absurd podcast out there. Basically, two guys in a room talking about guns and politics and religion and family life. Why you come back every week, I do not know, but I'm happy to see you.
Everyone's radio turn off.
I'm always glad you're here. I feel like the kid in high school who got the cool friend and can't figure out why. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for finding us on youtube.com/FeltRecoilShow and checking out our videos. We enjoy putting those together, and we're glad you seem to be liking them too. Thanks for all the comments and the feedback as well. My name is Chris, and across from me in the Thomas Creek Brewery hat.
Yeah, buddy, it's Patrick.
Hey, buddy. Glad to have you here. A lot to get to. Kathy Griffin is what she did illegal in mocking a decapitation of the sitting president of the United States. If it's not, I think you could argue it should be. I don't think we should be allowed to imitate the death of the president, but I don't know. Maybe, First Amendment and all that. We'll get to all that and more. Plus, we found a story on a very long kill shot from a sniper's rifle that has a tie here to the state of South Carolina where we live. The shockwave from Mossberg is going to Texas finally. It's been illegal there, and it no longer will be very, very soon. Plus, all of our thoughts on constitutional carry. I got into a conversation with a man last night, and I thought, man, I can give you 6 reasons right now I don't think constitutional carry is a great idea. But before we dive into all of it, and again, that's my opinion, I'd like to hear yours. Before we get into all of it, let's talk about this week's charity of choice. It is Operation Enduring Warrior. This is a veteran-founded nonprofit whose mission is to honor, empower, and motivate our nation's wounded veterans through a physical, mental, and emotional rehabilitation. The program of Operation Enduring Warrior helps participants overcome adversity and hardship through innovation, teamwork, and perseverance. This ultimately enables the lives of wounded veterans to go in directions they may have once thought were impossible. We've seen Operation Enduring Warrior in action. We were at a Tough Mudder style event near Columbia, South Carolina. We did a kind of a recap video for that organization that was raising some money, and Operation Enduring Warrior was there, and that was absolutely phenomenal. It's the most surreal experience I've ever had in my life. Talk about looking up and you feel like you're in the middle of a dream, and this just cannot be real. It cannot be real, but then it is. And these guys are absolutely motivating and inspiring. I was never in the service. I've never experienced massive trauma in the sense of the things some of these guys have witnessed or the things they've been through physically and mentally. So I can't begin to say I could understand what they're going through, but there are organizations out there that are operated by people who do, and they are completely volunteer run at Operation Enduring Warrior, and any donation you make will go directly towards the operational support of the organization and its different programs. So please visit enduringwarrior.org and find out more about what Operation Enduring Warrior is all about at enduringwarrior.org. If it's easier for you to remember because you're here already, go to feltrecoilshow.com and click on the Charity of Choice box, and you'll find a link to them there. Okay, Operation Enduring Warrior lives online at enduringwarrior.org. They say you have to hear things 3 times before you remember them, so I think I got it there.
What?
Yeah, right. All right. Kathy Griffin, if you're not aware, has, I think, lost nearly every job. You're not doing too well in life. When the two things you have going for you that everyone knows is Squatty Potty and the CNN New Year's Eve fiasco that involves Don Lemon and Anderson Cooper, we can safely assume things aren't going well. So you have to strive to remain relevant, and that's probably not very easy for Kathy. But here's what she did if you didn't know.
I was more shocked that she had so many jobs.
Right. Yeah, there you go. That's true.
Because I
couldn't
even tell you last time I heard her name.
I remember, well, she had a reality TV show that I used to watch. I don't remember the name of it. And this had to have been 10, maybe even 15 years ago. And I watched it because I actually really liked her husband. And she had this just...
Someone married her?
Oh, yes, but remember, this
is taking all kinds of twists and turns I wasn't ready for.
This is before the plastic surgery. This is before the crazy liberalism started really kicking into high gear.
She decided she wanted to look like Andy Dick?
Yes, exactly. Andy, what was the movie that Andy Dick was in, that Will Ferrell was in? That somebody...
Old School.
Was it Old School?
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody posted that picture of Andy Dick next to her apology video. Yes. Unbelievable. All right. So anyway, I liked her just for the sake of the show. I didn't know a lot about her back in the day. Her husband was just this regular, fun-loving kind of guy. Then she got a little bit of notoriety, started having plastic surgery, and divorced him, left him. And I just thought, man, that speaks to her probably being a terrible person. And now we know it's true. So here's what she did. She did this provocative photo shoot where she held up basically a decapitated head covered in blood that looked like Donald Trump. Same hair, same face, and all that. They really, did the whole 9 yards here in mocking this. I don't know what you would call that, a head prop. To look like the president, covered it in blood, and then, she's supposed to look like she just decapitated the sitting president of the United States of America. If you remember, there was a documentary made while President Bush was in office that talked about assassinating him. If you remember, when President Bush was in office, Al Franken urged a sign language interpreter to not sign what Bush was actually saying, but rather sign instructions for how Al-Qaeda could get in to the White House and murder President Bush. So it's not new to anyone that, people joke about killing the president. Certainly under Obama, people made really inappropriate comments about he should be hanged or he should be killed or somebody should shoot him or whatever. And so it's nothing new. But what is new is the fact that it seems like there will be no consequences to her legally simply because she's a celebrity. I didn't think it was legal for anyone to threaten the life of the president. Arguably, that's not what she did. It's just artistic expression. But how could it not be interpreted that way? Did you read the story about Barron Trump? The president's 11-year-old son is sitting at home. This comes on the news, and he actually believed that his father had been decapitated. That's what you did to an 11-year-old kid. For what reason? For what reason? Shock value? To stay relevant because nobody knows that you're endorsing Squatty Potty? If what you're doing with your life is now trying to tell people how to properly poop, you better be on the upswing, right? Because otherwise, you're definitely on the down.
Serious irony in the fact that she's promoting modes of defecation. I mean,
right? Yep.
That says a lot. You remember in 2006 the movie Death of a President? Do you recall that?
Yeah, that was the one about assassinating Bush.
Yeah. So is that the one you were talking about just a second
I believe it's the same, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I remember that coming out and thinking, well, how is this a thing?
How's it allowed? Yeah.
How's that a thing? Because and I actually saw parts of it, and I remember thinking, to me, this looks like, I think the idea was it was documentary style, but it wasn't meant to be satire. It wasn't meant to be a joke. It was meant to be taken artistically, literally, and I thought it was very strange because you have people standing there or sitting giving the 2020 style testimonial about where they were when it happened and all that, and so I guess the guy that made that he didn't go to jail or anything. So I'm assuming they're using this defense of this artistic relevance and whatever.
And so I think it also plays into the fact that we live in a society that's protected by the computer screen. We're so passive aggressive these days. Nobody has actual conversations with each other. We just handle it through email or online or whatever. And when it comes to people like Kathy Griffin, she's able to do what she does, feel somewhat removed from reality, and avoid real consequences because she can just post a video on YouTube and apologize, and then sit in her mansion and wait it out. Just I'll tough it out for a little while. To me, there's this big question I have is the fact that Kathy Griffin has worked for CNN for a decade. Okay? I work for a gun store. You work wherever you work. Just think about whoever your boss is right now. And tell me that the things you do on social media, you don't often filter through how will my boss take this? Personal, professional, whatever the case may be. There's always that filter in your head of how will my boss take this? Is this going to be okay from my work's perspective? There's certain things I'll get mouthy about, and if the people I work with found out about it and didn't like it, I don't care. Because if they hate it, they're not the type of people I want to work with or work for anyway, right?
Fair enough.
How does Kathy Griffin work for CNN for a decade and then think, I'll do a photo shoot where I decapitate President Trump and my job will not be affected? The only thing I'm led to believe is that that's the culture at CNN. That it's so okay to mock him behind the scenes and to say really bad, cruel things about him that it never dawned on her that maybe this is a really, really bad idea. Maybe this could cost me some income.
Well, I mean, so you get CNN updates on your phone, right?
I do.
So if you look at those on the whole, what do you see? Since Trump's election.
Yeah. Did you know that Russia has its own office in the White House?
Apparently.
Yeah, it's called the Hammer and Sickle office. So there's the Oval Office, and then right next door, Donald Trump gave them the Hammer and Sickle office. It's a true story.
Well,
True story. I saw it. CNN updates.
Like CNN to cover that for us.
But yes, that's what I see.
But what percentage of, and again, your opinion, what percentage of those CNN updates do you think are solely directed at Trump?
90%. Easy.
Versus the rest of the news cycle.
Everything else happening in the world, 90%. Yeah.
So as far as I can tell, because I would agree with you, that's the only thing they care about is how can we demonize Trump? How can we bash him? How can we make him look, in the worst light possible? Whether or not it's true. Again, I think the guy's an idiot. But I don't think every single thing he does, every waking moment, is, he's evil incarnate.
I mean, even with Obama, there were times where you go, well, I can get down with that. He loosened restrictions on carrying firearms in federal parks and things of that nature. I can get down with that. Cool, great. It can't all be bad. At some point, the man's got to be given the ability to do what he does. There's a story this week that it is great for all of us that apparently we've deported so many MS-13 gang members back to El Salvador, their home country, that El Salvador is saying, can you please stop? There's too many. This is terrible. We can't handle how many you're sending back. And we're saying, no, take a hike, which is as it should be. It's as it should be. You handle it. They're your people. They were bred in your society. You fix them. It's not up to us to fix your broken people. I'm reminded, with no dog in the fight, by the way, because I hate the government. And if we could rightfully abolish our current government and start over, I'd be on board with that. Not violently. This isn't sedition. But I am saying that I think our current government has gotten so far away from the Constitution that things have to change. And the only way to change them is to absolutely get rid of everyone up there and start over. Now, here's what I'm trying to say. No dog in the fight because, again, when I tell you I wasn't a Trump voter, I'm not saying that to be like, in any way melodramatic or anything. I'm just saying it to show that he wasn't my guy.
I thought that was like your hipster way of, well, I liked him before they were famous.
Right. No. I didn't like him before.
Oh, okay.
And then I couldn't vote for him. I didn't like, I've never been a fan. Like when The Apprentice was huge and everybody liked it, huge. Yeah, I had to. Okay, sorry. When that was in its heyday, I still didn't like the guy. And I didn't like the show, and I don't think I've ever watched a full episode of The Apprentice. But the point I'm making,
I have not.
As a guy who didn't vote for him, who's never been a fan of him, here's what I like. I once saw Trey Gowdy give a speech in person. He came to the college I was going to school at, which is in his district. Amen. Peace be upon Trey Gowdy. And a kid, and I say that and remind you, I was the old man. I was, in my mid-30s going back to college. So like a 19, 20-year-old kid stands up and he says, I'm going to run for office, and I want to go to D.C., I'm going to change things. What do you recommend I do first? And Trey Gowdy said, don't run for office. Because I'm telling you right now, it's so corrupt there that you will not change anything. You won't do it. You have to change it from the outside. So I tell you that to say that I got a CNN notification, maybe at 8 o'clock tonight, that another congressional investigation was opening on a meeting between Jeff Sessions and a Russian official. And I thought to myself, what I believe is happening is that the guy that was going to run to change things did it. And he got himself elected, and everybody there hates him for it. Republicans and Democrats alike hate our president because he doesn't care. He's no tie to special interests. There's no amount of money that's going to influence this guy. Right. Exactly right.
Because
exactly.
Let's be honest, that's what it is. It's a big game. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of politicians run under this guise of, well, yeah, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to really shake things up and I'm going to change this and I'm going to show these guys how we do it down here. Right. And then they get up there and they go, oh, so this is how it works, huh?
Yep.
And then they fall right into that trap. And then that big old machine just grinds them up and they just become part of it. And so it's the same thing every time. Every politician says the same thing, and then the same thing happens when they get elected.
So let me divert.
I don't Republican, Democrat, whatever.
Listen,
I think the same thing happens to all of them.
I want to prove your point.
Tell me how smart I am, Chris.
You are very smart. I lived in Warner Robins, Georgia, and I was the program director for a couple of radio stations, and we had a little TV station. And it was owned by Georgia State Senator Cecil Staton. And Cecil interviewed me for the job, and I told him that I was a nonpartisan kind of guy, and I didn't care that he was an elected official. If he hired me to do the job of being the program director and the afternoon host on his news talk station, if he ever stood up and said it should be legal to kick puppies on Sundays, that I'm going to tell him, and I'm going to tell the public it's a really stupid idea, and Cecil really needs to get his head on straight. And we laughed together, and Cecil was a Republican, and Cecil was surrounded by good people that worked for him, and some very, very good people that worked for him. But Cecil was as corrupt as a politician can be. He's now like the chancellor of a school in North Carolina. I can't remember exactly where he went, but his business went bankrupt. He was heavily implicated as posing as a woman who lied about having a sick mother in emails to constituents in order to influence their activities. Meaning this: if just do me this favor, if you do nothing else, Google Cecil Staton, Beth Merkelson, Atlanta. Just do that. Cecil Staton, Beth Merkelson, Atlanta, and you will find the stories of how a lady named Beth Merkelson was somehow able to use the same IP address as Cecil's personal BlackBerry to send emails to people dishing dirt on fellow Republicans in the state Senate.
Why do I feel like Hillary Clinton's going to get tied into this somehow?
She probably was, but no. Because that wouldn't prove the point, the bigger point, which is all politicians at all levels of all parties are most likely corrupted. So Cecil says he didn't have anything to do with it. I don't believe that. I was there when it happened. I was receiving emails from Beth Merkelson. I read emails from Beth Merkelson to Cecil Staton. And I even made fun of her and said, nobody cares that this housewife has too much time on her hands and she's worried about procedures of the state Senate. Nobody cares about that. The only thing people care about is where their money's getting spent and the people that are spending it and the people that are getting it. And he said, well, she makes some good points, blah, blah. I felt as if he was trying to influence the content of my show. So maybe I took that personally. Now, he says it wasn't him. I don't believe that. I believe it was. It was never proven, but here's what did happen. I'll try and be as concise as I can. Think of it this way. A gentleman created 2 websites, okay? One was like dumpcecilstaton.com, and the other one was reelectcecilstaton.com. I don't remember exactly what they were, but it was similar to that. But those were phony URLs, and those phony URLs both linked to basically www.abx59ZQLR67555LEMQ.com. So he had made this complex URL that would not accidentally be found, okay? And then he hyperlinked to it in 2 separate emails. The first email went to Beth Merkelson and said, I want to help you clean up Georgia. Click this link and help me clean it up. And that link, after it got sent to Beth Merkelson, was clicked, and the IP address was captured that visited the website. And within 60 seconds, an email was sent to Cecil Staten's personal BlackBerry that said, you're going to want to be aware of this, dumpcecil2012.com. And the same IP address from Cecil's BlackBerry clicked that link and went to the same website.
All right, time out.
Yep.
How do we know that? Who was monitoring the IPs?
The man that created the website wrote a 12-page report that you can go online and read. And I read the entire thing about how he did it, how it all works. He even went and testified. It was bad enough that Cecil...
So this guy, he wasn't law enforcement or anything like that?
No, he wasn't law enforcement.
Just a concerned citizen?
He was a dude that knew his stuff and suspected Cecil. And he was no slouch when it came to technology. And his 12-page report resulted in Cecil resigning because he was the president pro tem of the Georgia Senate at the time. I believe that's right. He had to resign his position of power within the state Senate, but still denied that it was him. And when I told him to his face I thought it was him, I can tell you for a fact he looked at the floor and told me it wasn't. So any man that looks at the floor and goes, well, I don't know how you got there, it wasn't me, he's lying to you. And that's my impression, but I felt like he was lying. I still feel like he's a liar. I can tell you this for a fact.
That's pretty impressive.
One more quick thing about Cecil. Cecil owed a school, Mercer. We played Mercer's college sports. Mercer was a college in Macon, and we carried their sports programs stuff on our TV station and on our radio stations. And we owed them a percentage of revenue of ads sold, right? So if we sold a commercial for $1, they got 15 cents. Well, we never paid him. To the tune of like $30,000, we never paid him. His company didn't. And they came out and finally said, look, Cecil State knows us all this money, and we don't know what to do, so we're going to sue him. Well, Cecil came out and said, I don't owe them anything. We're all paid up. And the next day, sent them a check for like 17 grand and said, let's call it even. And then they released that and said, if you don't owe us money, why are you sending us a check? I put that on my personal Facebook page, by the way, and said, if I can tell you this for a fact, if I didn't owe somebody $30,000, I definitely wouldn't send him a check for $17,500, right? And he saw it and called me in, and that's where the whole meeting started, where I went into, I think you're lying. I think you lied about Beth Merkelson. I think that was you, blah, blah, blah. So why am I telling you all that? A, because to me, it's a fascinating story. Maybe it's not to you. I'm sorry if it's not. But the point is, that's a Southern Georgia Republican, corrupt to the core. To the core. I cannot be convinced that when you get on bigger levels, it's not the exact same thing. Same reason I got out of talk radio, by the way. When they closed and shuttered everything down there in Southern Georgia, my wife, we were dating at the time, well, we were definitely engaged at the time once we made it to Southern Georgia, but I said, look, the corruption here is so bad, meaning we had sponsors of the station, okay, local car dealers, Wayne Lowe, and Wayne Lowe was in cahoots with the local mayor, and everybody knew it, and I was told not to talk about it because Wayne Lowe spent money on the radio station. And so I would mock Wayne Lowe, and I would mock Chuck Shaheen, who was the mayor, and I would talk about the corruption and the involvement in between them. And to the extent, by the way, this is no kidding, to the extent that the lady got up in a city council meeting and said, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to talk to you about this issue. And he said, you know what, why don't you, me, and Wayne Lowe, I'll sit down and talk about it. I was like, why is the local car dealer sitting down with this lady to talk about city policy? Corruption. And I was told during a commercial break by Cecil's wife, Catherine, via email to my boss at the time, that if I talked about that audio that we had, if I talked about it, I could go find myself a new job. So here's the whole point of all this is this.
And that's when Chris started the job search.
That is when I said, let's go find new work. And we came back to South Carolina. I went back to school because I knew if the corruption is this bad on this scale, even if I were to end up at Fox News or wherever else, it's only going to be that much worse. You will always be influenced by the people with the money, and your boss will always be beholden to them, and your boss won't care about your principles. So the fire, the desire, and the idea that I could stay and talk radio and affect change of some sort was over. And that's exactly how I feel about politics. If the politicians in southern Georgia who are running the state of Georgia are small fries, small fish in a big pond, if they're that corrupt, it can only be that much worse in D.C. It can only be that much worse in D.C. So I think the fact that you got a guy in here now who doesn't care about the car dealer, quote unquote, right? Who doesn't care if you really aren't Beth Merkelson, but if you act like you are, you're out. If it can even be hinted that you might be, you're out. I think they hate that because, like you said, it's a game. They got to play by the rules. And now he doesn't care what the rules are. He makes the rules because he's the man in charge. And I think they hate him for it. So that allows people like Kathy Griffin to do photo shoots where she'll decapitate him. The left will act angry for a little while. She'll apologize. And then in 6 or 7 months, she'll have a TV show about coming back from the embarrassment and how sorry she is, even though she never really will be truly sorry. I don't know how you apologize for something like that because it's so sick. How do you do it in the first place? If you're a decent human being, decapitating someone and taking pictures of it is never something you think of doing.
Usually this is where we get a statement from the press that says they're going into rehab. And then they quote unquote go into rehab and they,
do you
figure out whatever their ailment is or issue. Maybe ailment's not the best word, but you know what I mean.
Well, do you think she'll go to comedy rehab and learn how to be funny?
That's a pretty tall order, so I don't know about all that.
That would be a thing. That she needs that. All right. If you haven't seen the picture, you can find us on Facebook, feltrecoilshow.com. This might divert too much, but can I just ask that we start a second PSA campaign? All right. Now, we're currently trying to make all cars illegal because they kill so many more people every year than firearms. Children, terrorists use them as weapons. We got to make all cars illegal.
The Macy campaign.
The Macy campaign. Can we start another campaign called "But You Probably Don't Have It"? Are you noticing this trend?
Tell me more.
There's this trend of billboards and TV commercials telling you everything you could have, but they never end it by going, "Well, you probably don't have it." I saw a billboard on the way to work the other day that says, "Sensory sensitivity is a sign of autism."
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Autismspeaks.com. And I thought, you could have sensory sensitivity but not have autism, right? So I think there needs to be a law where all your things about the ailments, to use your word, all the things about the disorders and the diseases need to have an asterisk. And then it needs to say, but you probably don't have it. I just think that's fair.
Maybe that should be WebMD's slogan.
Right. Cancer, but you probably don't have it unless you're Chris. I think it would be helpful. That's all I'm asking for. Yeah, heck yeah. Till the day I die from cancer. All right.
You were sick.
I know, but I did have cancer and I beat it. What am I going to do? I'm a hero. All right.
It's a loose interpretation of the word, but go ahead.
If by hero you mean I did nothing, yes,
right.
Hero I am. I hate to call myself a hero, but I will.
So can we go back to that billboard real quick before we move on?
Sure.
I think that billboard, if I remember correctly, there's a little logo for the ad council down in the corner.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the ad council?
No, only from seeing the logos.
So, the
Obama.
There'll be like a stop smoking commercial on TV brought to you by the ad council. So one day I got really frustrated because I saw a bunch of those kind of back to back to back. And I thought, who is this ad council?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What do they do? I thought it was some kind of government entity. I'm still not exactly sure what
assumption.
they do. If that's what they are, I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you might have done some research.
But I found nothing. I came away empty-handed. I left more confused than when I started.
So are you suggesting that maybe the ad council is a secret society whose mission is to convince us all we have autism, cancer, and something wrong with our rectum, and that the only way The only way to make sure we don't is through the ad council. And then we have to pledge our allegiance, and that's how they take over the world.
That's called the Illuminati, Chris.
It sounded to me like that's what you were saying about the ad council.
I just pulled their website up. Ad Council, inspiring change, improving lives.
By depressing everyone.
I guess that's their whole message.
If you don't have autism.
Oh, here we go. Our mission: identify a select number of significant public issues and stimulate action on those issues through communications programs that make a measurable difference in our society.
Hashtag campaign.
Hashtag how do we make money?
Yeah, exactly right. I'll tell you, man, it's all malarkey anyway. You know, I interned with a nonprofit for a semester in school. Or was it a summer? I think it was just over the summer. And it was terrible. And those people don't do anything. They literally, I sat in a meeting, I kid you not, I sat in a meeting that was all about how you should buy a sign from us, the nonprofit, for $75 to urge people to not idle in your parking lot because it pollutes everything. And I was like, wait, and these people get government money? What am I doing wrong in life? But yeah, man, if you'll hug a tree, embrace the green, or make people hyperventilate from terror, then you can get some government funding. I don't think it's too hard.
Look into that.
I'm telling you right now. If all else
Maybe
fails,
we can get the ad council to play some spots on our show, and then we'd have somebody paying us to do this. What do you think?
Okay.
But every time we come back from commercial break, we could say, "But you probably don't have that."
But you probably don't have it. Hey, I'm Christopher Million. I'm here to tell you about a disease you probably don't have. So you can stop listening. I'm just trying to cash a check. Yeah, like every other commercial in the world.
So here's the things that they cover. Categories: education, family and community, health, safety, and then one of my personal favorites, they call it the classic category.
Which is?
AIDS, the Red Cross.
AIDS is classic.
McGruff the crime dog, domestic violence, drunk driving prevention, the Peace Corps, polio.
Wait. One second. How is AIDS under... AIDS is still a thing. We still have Magic Johnson. AIDS is still there. How is it under the tab of classic? How do you get labeled as classic?
I don't work there.
Patty, I got some good news. I got some bad news. Bad news is you have AIDS. Good news is that is a classic syndrome to have. Don't you worry, buddy.
I feel like that's like I flipped on a classic rock station the other day and they were playing Rod Stewart and I thought, what the hell is this?
Classic rock.
So now I'm thinking when we're talking about health crises,
right?
AIDS will just move that into the classic.
Were you trying to find the NASCAR race when you flipped over the classic rock station?
Yep.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear AC/DC followed by Queen, followed by Aerosmith, followed by Led Zeppelin. Repeat.
And then the sweeper that says, if it rocks, it's new rock.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my favorite. We have a local station in town, legitimately. Their tagline is, if it rocks, it's new rock, and they play Creed, like all the time. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It was new rock in 1992.
Why is everybody listening to their iPod when the radio is a thing? All right. Hey, so let's talk about thoughts on constitutional carry. Let's just switch gears entirely here. I was asked by a young man the other night, I think he was 19, a really, really nice guy, and we got into a bit of a conversation about firearms, and he was in. And this is actually what I really, really enjoy about my job, is when people come in and they're just getting into guns, and they got some questions, and they want to talk about the different types of guns. And largely, I think the thing people do wrong if you're a new gun shopper is they ask, hey, what's the best gun I can buy? Well, that is like going to a Toyota dealer and going, what's the best car I can buy? You're going to run the risk of a guy that goes, oh man, best car you can buy is a Lexus, and it just so happens we have them on this lot as well. Lexus isn't the best car you can buy. It's not. It's just not the best car you can buy. It's a very nice car. It's very well suited for certain people's needs, but it doesn't mean it's the best car you can buy. The best car you can buy is the car that fits every need you have. So he and I are in this conversation about his first handgun he wants to buy and how old does he have to be and blah, blah, blah. And he says to me, when can I take the class to get my CWP? And I said, well, I think you get a year to send it off. So I would suppose that if you waited till about 6 months out from your 21st, you might be able to sign up and take the class, and then you have your paperwork in order. and then send it in on your 21st. And it'll take about 3 months to get it back, and you're good to go. And he says, "Oh, okay. Well, how do you feel about constitutional carry?" And this was my diplomatic answer, because I was at work in a work shirt under the banner of work, and we're not really supposed to give a lot of opinion. It's one of those things where if someone says, "What's your opinion on the best concealment gun?" what we would like for you to do is say, "The best concealment gun is the gun you're comfortable carrying. Let me show you a few options." That's the smart way to handle it, right? What they don't want is for you to go, "Well, you got to have a revolver, and anybody that doesn't have a revolver is going to die first." Okay, don't do that. So that's what I mean by avoid opinion.
Buy a shotgun.
Right. Fire two blasts. So especially like politics-wise in any work environment. So he says, what's the best, what do you think about constitutional carry? And so I was trying to be diplomatic, and I said, "Man, can I just say it to you this way?" When the concealed weapons community can convince me they can follow the rules, I'll be glad to say you no longer need that permit in order to go out and try and follow the rules. But until that time comes, which is not today, and I don't think it'll be ever, but when that time comes, I will happily support letting anyone that wants to carry a gun in public. Now, am I opposed to the idea of constitutional carry? Not necessarily. But I just think, how do you determine? So if I have a constitutional right to carry a gun, that's obviously limited by any felonies I commit, right? Any CDVs, if I have criminal domestic violence on my record. But anyway, I guess the reason I'm bringing it up is I haven't really formed my opinion entirely because I'm torn. On a personal level, I think it's a terrible idea because people have shown to be incompetent. You know, I once had an old man pull a 380 LCP on me and point it at my stomach with his finger on the trigger. Not a joke. Not a joke.
I was actually about to tell the exact same story, except not you, me.
Yeah.
Because that's how often it happens.
I told that kid.
With a loaded
gun.
Loaded gun.
Yep.
Hot chamber.
Yep.
Magazine loaded. "Hey, you got a holster for this?" No, but you're about to have a broken arm.
Yeah. And maybe get shot. Because I can sub one you. I took a Travis Haley class. No. Yes. Listen. Let me ask you a question. It's going to sound sensational. It's going to sound like I'm being melodramatic. But I told the kid last night, this is going to sound crazy, young man. I didn't say young man, but I did say this is going to sound crazy. But I would bet money that anybody that works in a gun store for an extended period of time has had more loaded guns pointed at them than your average police officer. Sincerely, I believe that. Because
yeah, I could buy into that.
Police-involved shootings are so rare as a whole, but it's such a common thing to be standing in the gun store and have a guy walk in with a loaded gun, pull it out of a pocket or his waistband, and point it right at you. And go, "Hey, help me find a holster for," like you said, "help me find a holster for this. Hey, got clips for this?" That kind of stuff. In my case, the old man pulled it out. One of a few, but the one I significantly remember. Had his finger on the trigger the whole way towards my chest. I moved. He pulled his finger out of the trigger guard, and I put the palm of my hand up against the side of the trigger guard, and it was an LCP, so I was able to wrap my entire hand around it and shroud the trigger guard by going over the top. I pulled it out of his hand, and you know, that old curmudgeon started lecturing me about how I could have shot myself, how dangerous that was, what I just did, how stupid I was for taking his gun.
Well, yeah, you're an idiot.
Just a moron. I dropped the mag, cleared the chamber, and kept the round that was in the chamber, by the way. Handed him his magazine, told him, "Put that in your pocket. I'll give it back to you when you leave." Just like a little kid in class. Then I went and helped him find the holster, and the whole way through, he's lecturing me about what a bad idea it was that I took the gun out of his hand, how I could have shot myself, how he had a friend who did the exact same thing, and the gun went off, and he lost his job. I said, "Sir, you just committed a felony. You committed a felony by removing a loaded firearm and pointing it at me, okay? So you can lecture me on how to do my job, or I don't mention the fact that really you could be in a lot of trouble right now. Let's just agree to forget it, basically." He was incredulous, didn't buy the holster. I gave him his gun back, and he left. But my point is, I don't need dudes like that with guns anytime they feel like they want to carry a gun. And it makes me just really, really suspicious of the fact that you don't have to go learn what the law is before you're allowed to carry and abide by the law.
Well, so it happens all the time in the gun store. And for some reason, people think that that's excusable. Because, well, it's a gun store. Right. Mm-hmm. It is a gun store. They also sell guns at Walmart. Are you going to walk into Walmart and pull out a loaded gun and think that that's okay?
You got ammo for this?
Because I don't think they are. I would, maybe it does happen.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not convinced it doesn't.
But I would think it happens. If it does, it happens far less than it does in your average gun shop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you're right. Once you work in a gun shop, if you'd asked me this question before I worked in retail in the gun industry, I probably would have a very different answer.
Well, let me back it up with this. I can't defend constitutional carry because I don't trust the people. Does that mean they don't have the right to do it? No, not necessarily so. But a constitutional right does come with responsibilities. We talk about Travis Haley a lot here, and for the record, yes, hopefully, if they reply, they didn't reply. I'm so sad. I'm trying to get into the course up in North Carolina for August. I would love for you to join me for the D5 handgun class with Haley Strategic. And this is not a paid endorsement. I'm going to pay the full wage and go. I actually am trying to sell a couple guns to cover it. Anyway, none of that matters. The point I'm making is Travis will tell you in his classes, and this is what really endeared him to me and really kind of made me a lifelong committed follower of his teaching, if you will, is that he'll tell you, by taking the class, by carrying a firearm every day, you are agreeing to be held to a higher standard. You are at a higher degree of responsibility than the guy next to you because you're taking that responsibility on of protecting yourself, your family, and even strangers around you from bad people. And that the right of carrying a firearm comes with the responsibility of being well trained, just like you shouldn't vote if you're not doing homework on the candidate, like we talked about a couple weeks ago. Nobody would vote if you just had to pick a name and there was no party associated with it. If you had to do your homework, fewer people would vote. And I think that you should have to do your homework before you're carrying in public. I can't think of a court case that says there's a constitutional right to carry a gun in public. I mean, I'm glad to read it. If anyone knows of it, I'd love for you to send it to me, Chris, KRIS, at feltrecoilshow.com. Or just post it on any of our social media. But my point is, I guess the other thing I want to add to it is, I also advocate that I think felons should be allowed to buy guns. You think that's crazy? Is it crazy for a felon to be allowed to go buy a firearm? Maybe, but here's the thing. We tax those guys. So how is it someone is arrested, given a fair trial, convicted of a felony, pays their dues, comes out of prison, completes parole and probation and all that good stuff, and they've now moved on, and then we take their money, but we deny them representation. They can't vote, they can't buy firearms, but they served their time, they paid their fine to society, and now what? We brand them for the rest of their lives? And again, these are guys that have committed felonies, of course. Maybe they were dealing in drugs or whatever, but they went and served their time in prison and then completed parole and probation, and now they're contributing members of society.
I think we tax
them.
At one point, you could actually have felonies expunged for the purpose of purchasing a firearm. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's
some states anymore. I think some states allow it, that you can. I wrote a letter for a friend in Alabama, who I will allow to remain nameless. I had no idea. I knew this guy for probably 2 years, and he sat me down one night, and he was like, "Listen, man, I'm gonna tell you some kind of uncomfortable stuff, but I feel like I could tell you, and I want to ask you a favor." And I said, "Sure." And he started telling me how he got in some trouble, and he had been convicted of a felony, and he was looking for his right to vote. He wanted to be able to go vote, and there was a process in Alabama to appeal to the state to have those things expunged because you had done your time. And that is where I started thinking, now here's a guy who's trying to get his life back together, but we're going to basically we give him the scarlet letter to carry around for the rest of his life, but he's already paid his dues. We have agreed as a society, this will be your punishment, and when it's over, you should be able to come back and contribute. And if we tax him and take his money that he works for, then why are we allowed to do that? But he loses his right to vote and his right to have a firearm in his home to protect himself. So I'm not trying to say, I guess the reason I'm saying all that is I don't want to be one-sided on this. I'm not saying constitutional carry is something I think is a terrible idea. Here's the point I'm making. I should have said this at the beginning because I think this is the concise way to summarize it. When the firearms community as a whole can convince me that we're responsible enough and we're proper citizens enough in the way we conduct ourselves with firearms in public, then I'll be all about it. But the firearms community hasn't convinced me of that yet. And so I'm not at a state where I would say to you, anybody that's of age should be able to put a gun in the waistband and take off with it.
Well, I think to add to your point about felons, I could tell you, I bet I know a half dozen guys who, so let's just say, for instance, we want to exclude quote unquote violent offenders from being able to purchase. But maybe if you're white collar crime or drug offense, something nonviolent, we let it slide. Okay,
Yeah.
now you have your right to vote back. You can buy firearms, etc.
Right.
Okay? But I could probably tell you 6 guys that I know that when they were young and stupid got in a fist fight outside of a bar.
Right.
That resulted in somebody getting their jaw broken or whatever, and everybody gets hauled off, and everybody gets charged with, aggravated assault or whatever. And so we take what is basically a scuffle that gets elevated charges, and now they're felons before they're 23 years old, and so the rest of their life they can't be around guns or what have you.
Yeah.
And these are guys that you meet them later in life, and you would never in a million years think, well, this guy's just running around beating people up, because it's not. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
So
I mean, punishment should be the pathway to reform, right? I think that's the right way to say it, is that
Sure.
if, as a dad with kids, when I punish my kids, my hope
it's the correct behavior.
Yes, exactly. Let's stop doing the bad things
Now, we could
and recognize.
do a whole other show on the corrections
yeah.
system and does it actually function as, in this sort of rosy tint that this picture we're painting here. I don't know that it does, but for a lot of people, I'm sure that it does. And they get out and they are, we'll use the word reformed, maybe.
Right.
But let's just say they're not returning to that life. Okay. And they made one mistake or a series of mistakes and got caught and then decided, well, I'm not going to do that again. Does that mean, like you said, then we take all that away and they don't ever get any of that back? But I don't know that's fair.
Yeah. And that is my point. How do we expect them to move on and reform if we stick them with that scarlet letter for the rest of their lives? They've been punished. Allow them the chance to reform.
The greater point is, so these guys that I know, and like I said, I could name a handful of them. So they've moved on with their lives, but you, at the same time, you have the guy who walks into the store and points a loaded gun at your stomach. It happens all the time. That's the guy I feel like shouldn't have a gun.
Right. Absolutely.
Not necessarily the guy who got convicted of, fighting somebody out front of a bar 10 years ago.
Yeah. So there you go. Here, I guess here's a final thought on it. 14 states, by the way, have constitutional carry. 14 states. And they actually have great reciprocity rates. I was surprised. I was looking at it earlier today. South Carolina doesn't even compare to what some of these guys get just for having constitutional carry. So that's cool. However, here's my takeaway from this conversation is this. Maybe I'm okay with it as long as the repercussions for being screwy about it are severe and swift. So if constitutional carry is a thing, the first time you pull your gun in public like a jackass, never again. Now you have to go have a permit. And by the way, you have to have that permit renewed every year because you committed such an egregious encroachment on the rules. It was so bad. We've stripped you of that right, and now you have to go get tested. That I would be okay with. But, man, there better be a safety net because I'm telling you. Yeah. And I'm not saying it'd be the Wild West. I don't agree with that at all. I think that's stupid. I think 90% of the people out there are responsible with their firearms because we deal with people every day that have loaded firearms on, and there's no harm, no foul. As we've talked about, we went to the NRA show, no harm, no foul. But when you get into it every single day and you deal with people like that and you see the 10% that are bad apples, that tends to be what sticks with you and just makes
every
you
time
very wary of it.
One of these states is up for vote for constitutional carry. That's what you get is all the talking heads coming out saying it's going to be the Wild West.
Right.
And I don't know that I've ever heard any stories to that effect once constitutional carry was put in place.
Never happens.
So maybe, and this is me talking, maybe that's an unrealistic fear, and that's due to my experiences and the fact that I see it on a pretty regular basis where people walk in with, they walk in the door of the store with a pistol in their hand, slide forward. I don't know if there's a magazine in it or not, or rifle in their hand, not in a case, walk into the range. And it's obvious, even for me, I'm sort of numb to it because I see it so much, but it is still unsettling.
Right.
I can only imagine what that would be like outside of where I work, where it's not the norm.
Yeah.
The idea of that is what's scary to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It'll be interesting. I don't think it'll ever happen in South Carolina, but if it does, so be it. I would, by the way, try to remember, if you don't have a CWP, you have to go through a federal background check every time you buy a gun in South Carolina. So that's why I want to keep mine. I don't want them to know when I buy things. All right, real quick, the Shockwave, by the way, will soon be legal in Texas. So if you're listening in Texas, just know that it's coming your way. Mossberg posted on Twitter that now that Texas House Bill 1819 has been signed into law, effective September the 1st, if a firearm is not restricted by NFA, it is not restricted in Texas. So here comes the Shockwave, which, by the way, is made in Texas, where it's illegal. It's such a weird world we live in, like Magpul in Colorado. But anyway, so it's headed your way if you're in Texas and you've been looking forward to it. And make sure you look, by the way, we have a video review of that coming up very, very soon. We sat with Mossberg at NRA in Atlanta, but we got some time this weekend to go out and actually shoot the Shockwave and do a full-on write-up on it. So we're looking forward to sharing that with you because I enjoyed it enough to make a video about it. Patrick, not so much. All right, last thing on the docket. You ready?
No.
Tell me how to say this.
Okay.
Shy-tack? Shy-tack.
Shy-tack.
Shy-tack kill shot. That's what it says on my list. What happened? And this company has ties to South Carolina, which is cool. They have a headquarters in Charleston?
Allegedly. Which
Allegedly.
I did not know.
Well, here we are. Apparently, they could shoot us from there, one side of the state to the other, from what I hear.
Are we in New Hampshire?
I have no idea. All right, tell me the story.
So this is...
Boring.
Right.
Sorry, buddy.
This is from an Australian news outlet that's reporting that a British SAS sniper killed an ISIS terrorist from almost 2.4 kilometers away using the, as they called it, the mega powerful rifle. I'm not sure where they got that term. I mean,
Mega powerful?
I like it. So they're saying that the Sun has reported that it took 3 whole seconds for the bullet to reach the terror thug in Mosul, Iraq, 2 weeks ago. Now, this story is from May 22nd, so we're a little bit late on this one, but nonetheless, it basically says that
Wait, what are you talking? It's been 9 days. It's a weekly podcast.
Oh, yeah.
We get a little wiggle room.
Good point.
Okay.
Well, 2 weeks plus 9 days.
Oh, I see.
So that's why I'm saying we're a little late to the party.
Yeah, well, let's accuse them. It's always easier to point your finger at other people. The Sun, if the Sun would have reported
That's
this
right.
sooner,
I can do no
we would've
wrong,
had it.
and for that I do not apologize. That was my apology.
It's like every fight I have with my wife. How many times can I apologize for being perfect? How many times?
And then she brings you a sandwich.
No, yes. No.
Okay, so as I was saying, this veteran sniper hit the insurgent in the throat as he tried to escape a burnt out building. It killed him as they put it, almost instantly.
Almost. Oh, I love it.
So they're calling this nearly impossible shot. So 2.4 kilometers. We looked it up just to be sure.
Yeah, 1.4 miles.
1.49 miles.
That's right.
So almost
Good
exactly
memory.
a mile and a
Yes,
half.
sir.
And it was done with the ShyTac M200, and it's chambered in something funky. It's their own round.
I was about to say, don't they do proprietary?
It's like 375 ShyTac
There
is the
you
round,
go.
I believe.
Of course, why not?
I don't see it in here, but I think that's right. If I'm wrong, again, I will not apologize.
When 338 Lapua just ain't enough.
Right.
375 ShyTac.
So they're basically saying this was a counter sniper operation, and this article goes on to really sort of bolster how awesome this rifle is and how impressive the shot was, and all the different things that go into making a shot like that, where you have to take in the curvature of the earth and the wind and everything else.
That's
and
too
you're basically
complicated.
lobbing it in there and sticking it to this guy. But what was really cool that I did not know is that they claim that this gun has ties to South Carolina. So, news to me, because when I heard ShyTac, I thought that was short for Cheyenne.
Yeah, Wyoming.
Right. So I just assumed long-range gun, out west. That sort
Makes
of makes
sense.
sense to me, right?
Big bullet for killing, elephants.
Right.
Indigenous to Wyoming.
Or
No?
woolly mammoths.
That was it. That's what I meant.
But so I went to their website, and if you go to their contact page, they have an address for Charleston, South Carolina.
Well, there you go.
So maybe they are from Charleston, and I didn't know this all along.
Well, I definitely want FN on the show because they're 100 miles down the road, and now we add ShyTac. ShyTac? ShyTac.
I think it's shy, as in SHY, but not spelt the same.
Yeah, I hate to tell you this, ShyTac, but your name kind of reminds me of Che Guevara because I can never know if I'm on it. It's always down to the wire with me if I'm gonna say Shay or Che. Like it just surprises me too. Like, if it's gonna surprise the person I'm talking to. It's gonna surprise me too. I'm like, oh yeah, like Che Guevara. And I'm like, oh man, I went with Shay. I think it's Che.
Caribbean.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool, very cool. I like.
Also, could you just stop insulting them by comparing them with?
I do apologize. You are a company of freedom, and that is a man.
You just said you wanted him on, and then you started talking about that.
I'm so sorry. Sorry. You are nowhere near as cool as he was.
Definitely don't have the right hat.
Wait, I went the wrong way. By the way, did you see the Hillary picture on our Facebook page?
How could I
Who
miss
wore
it?
it better? Oh, so good. If you haven't seen Hillary at her commencement speech and the Monica picture next to it that says who wore it better, their little berets, that's so funny. All right, make sure you find us online at feltrecoilshow.com. And thank you for listening every week. Please tell a friend and bring them along next time. It'll be a good time. We promise you that. Find us on all the socials, Felt Recoil Show, and on youtube.com/Felt Recoil Show. You can just type that in now. Just type in youtube.com/Felt Recoil Show. And our channel will pop right up there for you. Until next time, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.